This is absolutely surreal to have the mayor in our dressing room getting ready and to have cops in the house and to have government people and DJs and circus freaks and people who party for a living all in one place. It's amazing and it's mind-blowing. But why should it be so surreal to have the arts and culture capital of the world be in support of the spaces that make this kind of arts and culture? I've spent my entire adult life working, living, and breathing nightlife, which sounds like a lot of fun, but it's also absolutely terrifying. Because as you're creating a safe space for people of all types to come together and dance and celebrate life and celebrate each other and feel safe, in the back of your mind, you always feel like you could get shut down for absolutely no reason at all, and it could all come crashing down. And to have the city finally be in support of us doing this is going to do incredible things. I mean, we are the most hardworking, resilient, innovative, creative, loving, the best people. I feel so at home in New York because of our nightlife here. These are the best people, the best. So I am so grateful for all of this hard work. And I think that this is the beginning of, I want to say golden era, but I think Renaissance isn't too strong of a word for what will happen in New York City. Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Anya, thanks. It was so beautiful. You spoke from the heart about what this means, what our city stands for, what it's like to gather every kind of person together, to have a joyful experience, to celebrate together, and to have the freedom to know that something that beautiful is being created can be protected and preserved. So you've done that in this wonderful place. You've done amazing things to open up that opportunity for your fellow New Yorkers to really enjoy life to the fullest. Let's thank Anya for all she has done. Also, how are you the first person to come up with the name House of Yes? What a great name that is. It's amazing. It's brilliant. Everyone, thank you. I want to thank everyone who's here for being a part of this evening. And we are gathered for really something joyous because, as Anya said, all the good work that's been done, all the creativity, all the entrepreneurship has so often been accompanied by that fear that something could be stopped, something could go wrong, and that's not what we aspire to. We aspire to something more enlightened, something better for this city. Before, though, we talk about what we're celebrating this evening, I have to talk to you about something else for just a minute, because we're here in New York City, we're all safe and sound, but our neighbors are experiencing a tremendous challenge this evening, and it's a little surreal to be, out on the street and everything's normal and everything's fine, and then you turn on the television and see the extraordinary challenges that are happening to people who are our neighbors in nearby parts of the world, but also whose communities are so deeply tied to New York City. So especially on our minds this evening is what's happening with Hurricane Maria, which has already been very, very destructive as it's moved through the Caribbean. It is literally zeroing in on Puerto Rico at this very moment. It will be hitting in the next few hours. Sometimes you turn on the news, and particularly the weather, and there's very, overwrought statements and things that you kind of tune out. This time I heard something that was impossible to tune out. This literally could be the strongest hurricane ever to hit Puerto Rico in recorded history. And that's how dangerous it is, and that's how troubling it is. Here in this city, almost 700,000 New Yorkers have families that come from Puerto Rico and are so proud of their heritage, so closely connected to the island. And there's a lot of anxiety in New York City tonight. There's a lot of people who are deeply worried about their family in Puerto Rico, trying to imagine what this possibly could mean. My message to all New Yorkers, all proud Puerto Rican New Yorkers, and to all 3.5 million Americans who live in Puerto Rico, our brother and sister Americans who are Puerto Ricans. My message tonight is you are not alone. We, New York City, will be with you in the aftermath of this horrible storm. We're ready to help in every way, and I think all over this country there will be support for Puerto Rico in this extremely difficult hour. So we'll be sending personnel, we'll be sending supplies. At this moment already, because of the previous hurricane that hit, NYPD and FDNY personnel are already on the ground in Puerto Rico. We are prepared to send more as early as tomorrow. The first opportunity that they can safely fly in, we'll send additional reinforcements. And the city is united right now. Our hopes are for a better outcome. Our prayers for the people of Puerto Rico are strong. And at the same time, it's almost surreal to turn on the same television, and now we see these images from Mexico, this horrible earthquake that hit so near to Mexico City. Obviously, our Mexican community in this city is strong and proud and very large, and people are feeling that tragedy as well. So it's a tough day in many ways, but I ask everyone to get ready to help, to get ready to be there for your fellow New Yorkers and their families in their homelands, to get ready to donate. I ask for your thoughts and your prayers for all those who are in harm's way tonight. And again, before we turn to the matter at hand, I want to say a few words summarizing in Spanish. Toda nuestra ciudad está con Puerto Rico ante la llegada del huracán María. Ya tenemos personal de la policía y bomberos en Puerto Rico y estamos listos para enviar más personal y suministros. Además, nos unimos al pueblo mexicano tras el terrible terremoto de hoy. Les pido que tengan en sus pensamientos y ayuden lo más posible a todas las víctimas de estos desastres. So, even though I have a heavy heart on those matters, I want to get back to what we celebrate here, because it's a very good thing, and it's a long time in the making. And it really gets to the essence of what New York City is. We are the greatest cultural capital in the world. And we're a city that is not only a city of artists, a city that reveres artists and reveres music and dance and every form of expression, and appreciates what the extraordinary venues throughout our city have allowed to grow. That happened here is something that gives us such pride. Where the culture happens is essential. Without the venues, the culture simply can't exist. And the artists and the entrepreneurs who create these venues are deeply appreciated for all they bring to our city. And I want to acknowledge there's so many people here standing with us. They are artists, they're advocates for artists, they're business owners, they're community leaders. Let's do a big round of applause for all of them, everyone who's been a part of this. And also, two members of my administration I want to give special credit to. They are both understand all the complexities of life in New York City and all the balances we have to strike, but they both love their nightlife. Julie Menon, the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. And our Cultural Affairs Commissioner, Tom Finkelpearl. Now, you know, it's New York City, so whenever we talk about the sheer numbers, it's just unbelievable. So listen to this across all 5 boroughs. Nightlife accounts for almost 300,000 jobs when you add up everything that's supported by the nightlife industry. 300,000 jobs. A lot of people come here for the nightlife as visitors. A lot of people come to live here just for the nightlife. People come to just work in our nightlife industry as so central to life in this city. And you know, it's not just a series of businesses. Our nightlife scene is also how our culture evolves, and in many ways our culture changes through these venues. And it's part of the magic of New York City, and it's part of what makes our communities strong. And you think about it, I think every New Yorker has their own version of what, when you say nightlife, what comes into your mind and what, you know, pulls at your heart. I'm very touched this evening that one of our guests you'll hear from in a moment was a quintessential figure at the dearly departed CBGB. And for all of us who loved the punk movement, I want to express my appreciation now, and I'll do it again for Marky Ramone. And, but CBGB, and that's one example of the hundreds and thousands of venues over the years, but of a place that changed the way people thought and what they heard and what moved them. It's amazing. That's one. Another that is legendary to all of us, and another nightlife venue that took on the strongest historical significance was the Stonewall Inn, which is still here and going strong. And there, the nightlife turned into a movement that changed the very foundation of our society for the better. So this is part of who we are as New Yorkers, and you know, it's magical, but at the same time, it's a classic New York reality. It's not some ephemeral fairy tale. There's a lot of grit and hard work that goes into creating these places, a lot more grit than glamour, in fact, to create a venue and make it something great for the city. Now, there was a time in this city's history where these venues were not only challenged, but there was a systematic effort to undercut them. In the 1990s, the policy of the city was actually to harass a lot of these venues, and many were forced to close. And a lot of, you know, who we are as a city was undermined. It's pretty shocking. 1 in 5 small venues has been lost in the last couple of decades in this city. And one of the big reasons was that it was hard to navigate the rules and the restrictions that in so many cases just went too far and made it impossible. So a lot of people have been working hard to change that. And you'll hear from our colleagues in the City Council, they've been very devoted to this task. They understood, and my administration understood, that we needed to do something different and better. So tonight, we're going to be taking a step with the stroke of some pens over there to help these wonderful venues that are small businesses that do so much for the city, to help them grow, to help them thrive. We'll be signing the bill to create the Office of Nightlife. And the office will be led, I'm not going to announce any names yet, that's a massive competition going on, but the office will be led by someone who undoubtedly will be more popular than me and will wield tremendous power, the Nightlife Mayor. Which really is one of the coolest titles you could ever hope to have in life. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm the Nightlife Mayor. Doesn't that sound?
New York.
Yes, of New York City. Thank you. What will the office do? Rather than have an arbitrary reality that folks who have created venues and run venues struggle to make sense of, this office will help to make it simpler and clearer, help the venues to deal with inspections and rules and address problems even before they happen. And we're not in the gotcha game. We don't want to find problems to create another problem for the owners of these venues. We'd like to just fix the problems as early as possible so everyone can go back to what they do. That's what's good for the venues. It's also good for the neighbors to the venues. This is going to be a way to address real community concerns at the same time. And those are real and they need to be heard and they need to be acted on. But the best way to do it is proactively. So we will also have an advisory board. So any good nightlife mayor needs a nightlife advisory board. So we're going to create it with representatives from both the industry and the community to make sure that real concerns and obvious things like noise are addressed for the good of all. And there's that balance that can be struck that can work for everyone. Now, I always say, as a mayor, we have a habit of gently borrowing good ideas from other places. We don't steal them, we gently borrow them. So we're borrowing this idea from some great cities in the world. Over 30 cities around the globe have this kind of office, and it works fantastically, and that includes London and Paris and Amsterdam. And we know that's great, but it's going to be even better in a place as cool as New York City. So the bottom line is this will help our neighborhoods, and it will help our nightlife community to be stronger than ever and to feel supported, exactly speaking to Anya's point, to be appreciated and supported in the good work that all of you do to make this city even more extraordinary. I just want to say, again, a few words summarizing that in Spanish. El éxito de la vida nocturna es parte importante de la economía y cultura de nuestra ciudad. Nuestra vida nocturna apoya 300,000 empleos y pequeños negocios en cada condado. Estamos creando una oficina de vida nocturna con un alcalde nocturno, that's the night mayor, the alcalde nocturno, para ayudar a coordinar comunidades, negocios y agencias del gobierno. So with that, I want to turn to two of the leaders in the City Council who brought us this day and believed a change could be made and a lot of wrongs could be righted and a lot of things could be achieved that weren't achieved in the past. I give them a lot of credit, starting with the lead sponsor of the bill, Councilmember Rafael Espinal.
Thank you. Thank you. I came a little dressed down. I thought we were going to party after this. And I also heard that Marky Ramon was coming, so I wore my Converse just to make sure I fit the scene. But, you know, for those of you who don't know me, this is not my district, but I grew up in East New York. And when I grew up in East New York, it was actually one of the most disinvested communities at a time when the city was at its worst. And growing up there, I always dreamt about the day that I can leave Brooklyn. And I wanted to leave Brooklyn because I wanted to explore new opportunities. I wanted to have a chance at life, right? And I was also felt like I was very different from my peers. I was an artist with a very alternative mindset. I listened to music from bands like the Ramones and the Strokes, and I wore skinny jeans and Converse before they were even in a trend. I dreamed of hanging out on the Lower East Side at CBGB's and the Mercury Lounge. And it wasn't until I turned 21 years old. I was already too old to go back to those old haunts, but it was at a time where Williamsburg really became the next place where creativity was flourishing. And by the time that scene shifted, I walked into my first bar at 21. It was called Zabloski's. The owner's here with us today. I was 21 years old. I walked in there, and
No one believes you were 21.
I think he would argue with that as well. But you know, the music that was playing was the music I was listening to. The people that were there were like-minded folks, creative, looking for opportunities. And I immediately felt that I found a space where I felt that I belonged, a space where I can exchange ideas with people who were into the same things I was into. And it kind of gave me a space to escape the suppression that the government at that time was putting into my community. It allowed me my mind to flourish, allowed me to mature and think about what are things I can do to make my community better at some point in my life. So I credit a lot of who I am today because of that bar Zabloski's. And it allowed me to see live performances at DIY venues, try new restaurants, and I felt like at the time it was an ecosystem that was responsible for the next generation of New York City's nightlife. It was the new way we were heading, right? And if it wasn't for those experiences, for those people providing those spaces, I wouldn't be standing here right now today. So when I took office, one of my commitments to myself was that I'll aside from taking care of my community, I will find a way where I can give back to that community that's given me so much. Over these past few months, the word nightlife has been thrown around a lot, but I think it's worthwhile to define what we mean by nightlife and the impact we expect this office to have. I know the mayor has mentioned a lot. It's 25,000 restaurants and bars in New York City, kickstarted by entrepreneurs in a dream, thousands of workers, barbacks, bartenders. It's a $10 billion plus industry that contributes to our economy and also allows for our music industry to flourish. Nightlife is the dance club, it is the local bar, it is the DIY venues and cultural spaces that have been hiding under the bureaucratic shadows. Nightlife is made by everyday New Yorkers from the ground up. And most importantly, to many of us in this room, nightlife is a vital community space where people can escape everyday social norms and be themselves. It's where people come to network, build friendships, possibly meet the next spouse, and share and discover art. We talk about the financial impact of this industry, and that is significant, it really is. But what is perhaps more impactful and priceless is the cultural capital night venues produce. Putting New York City on the map as a place to be. Culture is made by New Yorkers in places like this. New York City has been the place for the next wave of music, art, performance, setting trends globally. Most of that talent isn't tucked away in some recording studio or expensive club, but it's found right here in our streets, in the nighttime, at places like this, again, where people, real people, come together. But for far too long, as the mayor mentioned, these businesses and the city has had an adversarial relationship, including the communities, and New York City right now is really at a crossroads. We have lost all of the iconic and diverse venues to corporate entities, which in turn homogenize the industry and expect you to pay expensive cover charges and drop hundreds of dollars on bottle service, right? Wait, there's a place for that as well, but we don't need so many of them. We don't need so many of them. You know, we've seen so many iconic DIY venues close their doors in the past few years. Shea Stadium, 285 Kent, Palisades, Goodbye Blue Monday, and many, many more. These type of spaces continue to be on the brink of extinction, but today, we're one step closer to coming up with a sustainable solution. The Office of Nightlife is a vital agency that was missing from our city structure. This office and the advisory board will be here for everyone involved in nightlife. Similar night offices have proven to work, as the mayor mentioned again, Amsterdam, London. And this move would allow New York City to enter into a global conversation with cities who are thinking dynamically about how to strategically plan for the nighttime. I think it's important to stress that when any venue shuts down, it leads to an entrepreneur possibly going bankrupt and workers without a job, further expanding the income inequality gap. It also leaves New Yorkers without a space to express themselves, mature in, and enjoy the great diversity that makes this city so great. So thank you, Mr. Mayor de Blasio, for understanding the struggles of working people and appreciating the business and creative community. Appreciate it. I just want to circle back and tell a little bit of the story of the House of Yes. You know, Anya actually started this place as a DIY venue over 10 years ago, and it continued to reinvent itself several times. And we're finally here today in an up-to-code establishment with the mayor of the city of New York. Finally. Right? With the mayor of the city of New York. And the venue owners didn't have to sacrifice the artistic and creative appeal that makes it so unique, diverse, and inviting. So congratulations, Anya, on all of that. I'm going to sum it up to just thank everyone, because it took a village to make this happen. I want to thank Andrew Riggi at the Hospitality Alliance, the Dance Liberation Team, the New York City Artists Coalition, especially Jamie, who's out there, Julia, Olympia, who's somewhere out there as well. We have Chris at Local 802, Brandon Hoy from Roberta's, I'm not sure if he's here, Jonas Bora, Rachel, John, and Frankie, who are here as well, and countless others who provided input and the momentum to get this thing to the finish line. And most importantly, my committee staff who had to deal with the headaches of making sure that I got everything I wanted into this bill. And I look forward to working with the administration, Commissioner Menon, and many of you in this room to make sure this office is the best office the city has to offer. So thank you, appreciate it.
Well, you know, Rafael talked about having to go other places to find the nightlife he was seeking, but Councilmember Antonio Reynoso just has to walk outside his door because it's his district. And we thank you for your leadership, too, on behalf of all these venues and all the people working in them. My honor to introduce the representative of this district, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
All right. Rafael, my dance buddy. We're dance outlaws.
Dance outlaws.
That's what we call ourselves. So I just want to say, welcome to Bushwick. We get down and turn up here. Popping bottles is not a problem. Sometimes on Fridays and paydays. But what I think this speaks to something that's much different. In a time when Williamsburg was the beginning of something we were building in Brooklyn regarding culture and art. The city did everything it possibly could to drive them out. They found a home here in Bushwick. And what we're doing is saying, this is your home. You can stay here, and we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that happens. So I appreciate that. So finally, the cultural, artistic, and economic value is something we care about here in the city. So I want to thank Mayor de Blasio for allowing that to happen as well. So thank you so much for that. And then my story is a little different than Rafael's. I grew up in 1990s South Side. So for me, it was like the salsa and the merengue and the típico were very important to me. And when I was in the streets, I wanted to dance salsa. And at 21 years old,
Thoroughly unbelievable.
no, for me, it's actually, I look like I'm 15. So imagine what I looked like when I was 21. So I needed an ID, trust me. They wouldn't let me in. But at 21, I learned how to dance. I learned how to dance salsa because no one danced salsa. So the dance floor used to clear up. And I said, look, this is a perfect opportunity to really show off. And I learned how to dance salsa because of it. I danced in like 3 Puerto Rican Day parades. I actually did weddings, dancing salsa as well. And all that mattered to me. It was extremely important to who I was. My culture was a big part of nightlife. And in the 1990s and the early 2000s, the clubs that I used to go to and the nightlife establishments that I used to go to were shutting down across the board. And they said the same thing. It's just so difficult. It's like fighting with the city every single day. It's not easy running a restaurant. It's not easy running a place like this. And every dollar matters and the regulations matter. So I'm just glad we finally have a place to call or a person to call so we can finally address those issues. And I look forward to the next 20, 30 years that we can continue to get down and turn up in Bushwick. So thank you and congratulations.
So before we sign this legislation into law and make it binding as the new law of New York City and change the approach of this city, I wanted you to hear from 2 people who remind us what comes from these magical venues, the artists that change our lives and elevate our lives in so many ways. So first, I want to bring forward a man who comes out of the jazz idiom, the American musical art form. He is a Grammy winner, and he also did such important work to protect musicians and artists in another context, which was New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, when the cultural community was so threatened and people had to step up to preserve and protect all that it meant to this country and to New Orleans. My pleasure to bring forward Ron Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here tonight for my friends here and out there. Some of you may know me by a record, but I'm also a bassist, an educator, and a real jazz enthusiast. I perform in hotels, clubs, lounges, venues in New York, throughout the city and throughout the world. I've been able to perform with some great people who are actually great friends of mine. Our nightlife is part of New York City's cultural event. We are known as the city that never sleeps. There are 3 sets of jazz somewhere going on right this moment.
Amen.
And it's in these clubs and venues that jazz and this music has a chance to grow. Our nightlife is a culture that makes New York the culture city of the world. Everyone comes to New York to see if they can be a bigger fish in a bigger pond. But the industry is changing. There are businesses, the challenges of businesses, the challenge of communities, and challenge of performers. When I heard these challenges were here, I said there must be a way to have this stuff kind of not in B flat all the time. You know? So when this event is called the City Office of Nightlife, in the key of F for me, I thought it'd be a great opportunity for New York to have a proactive address to people who you can call when you have trouble. Club owners need to find a way to keep the doors not getting locked by the marshal. Musicians have a chance to play, have an easier time to get to the work because the work is going to still be there. I'd like to congratulate the mayor and Mr. Espinal for having the audacity to make jazz and a venue available to everyone. Thank you. I'll see you all at the Birdland, October for 3 weeks. Thank you.
Good job. Get the advertising in. I like it. Finally, again, it's a particular honor to bring up our last speaker, and you know, I can't speak as eloquently as Rafael or Antonio, but I can tell you that for me, and in my case it was the end of the 70s going into the beginning of the 80s, the punk movement was tremendously important and spoke to my heart and so many of the hearts of people around me, because we were trying to sort out the world and we were seeing hypocrisies that needed to be called out and a different way of thinking, and that music really epitomized what so many of us felt. And I have in my family, I have a little bit of street cred because my kids, by the way, my kids they're 20 and 22, Kiara and Dante, they're really into vinyl. And they're really into the punk scene in addition to a whole lot of music since. So they each, especially Dante, were real devotees of the Clash. And I got to tell them when I went to NYU, I once went to a Clash concert at Bonds in Times Square, and it made me very relevant to them for a brief moment. So that movement was extraordinary, and you know, there was a big British imprint, but there was also something amazing happening here in America. And first and foremost, that was about the Ramones. And so to have one of those great creators and innovators with us, he was the drummer for the Ramones. He is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He is a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award winner and a true believer in nightlife in New York City. My honor, my pleasure to bring forward Marky Ramone.
Hello, thank you. This also goes out to Johnny, Joey, and Dee Dee and Tommy, who unfortunately aren't with us anymore. So this is kind of old school, so I have to hold us up a little bit. When the club CBGB started, we were very fortunate to have a venue to showcase our music. Artists like Blondie, Talking Heads, Television, and of course the Ramones. We attracted record labels, producers, the rock media, and curiosity seekers from all over the world. CBGB's was one of 3 clubs who would let these bands flourish. So now I'm going to fast forward to more than 40 years. Venues now have to highlight the talents of musicians, artists, dancers, and other forms of creativity. New York City is known worldwide as the city that never sleeps. I was very lucky to be born here. This also includes the people who moved here hoping for a better way of life. There's a fine line between becoming a bedroom community or a Big Apple, and the mayor is hoping the Nightlife Committee will work towards keeping our great city accessible, vibrant, and to artists and the people who want to experience their art that brings so much joy to their lives. Thank you.
Well, now We'll call for a vote here. Who's ready for this bill to become law? All right. Do it.
It always has been.